Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and once again I am joined by Kevin Graham. Kevin, have you had time to digest that team line that was released whilst we were on live in the last broadcast?
Aye, 35 minutes or so, and I'm actually liking the look of it. I like that. I like the attacking intent in it. It could just be absolutely kamikaze. This game could be. It's almost as if we've walked into a fridge and we're hoping the door doesn't shut behind us. I'm really looking forward to actually seeing how this team.
You reminded me of the film The Shining, and that didn't end well.
I mean, let's have a look at this. Where are we? Is this half time at Rugby Park when Lennon first time? Is it? Have we got
I think it is.
Have we got to this point?
Listen, Kevin, I actually think it is that point in Neil Lennon's Celtic managerial career. It's win or bust today, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not 100% sure of that, but if it is win or bust, then he's gone out all guns blazing. It's a really big day for everybody that's been shouting for Scott Brown to be took at the team. I mean, that's a big question. There is goals in that side. How we gel and how we look as a unit is another big question. But hey, it could be if they score 4, if we have to score 5, they have to score 4. Could be one of their games. I want Celtic to go forward. If we're going to blow this, we may as well do it in true Celtic fashion.
Well, I'm looking at that team. Loads of attacking players on the field. Loads of creative players on the field, Kevin. But you used the word there, kamikaze, and there is an element of that when you look at the side. There's a lot of changes, and that reeks to me of being a manager who's not quite sure to make sweeping changes like that. If you make 4 or 5 changes to your team line, there's no longevity to that. It's not as if you're thinking beyond the one game that you're playing. I think, listen, if we win 5-0, come back to me, tell me I'm wrong. But I've brought up a message that's come through on Twitter, Michael the boy, who's saying that there's definitely going to be goals in it today. You mentioned there, you score 5, we'll score 6. You score 4, we'll score 5. It looks like that kind of lineup. I mean, listen, I'm not criticising it before we've kicked a ball, but I'm actually struggling to figure out where some of the players are going to be positioned on that park. Who is playing in the Scott Brown role in Cham? Would you agree?
I think it's in Cham.
Right, so your whole outlook's completely changed right there because they're two completely different players with different attributes. McGregor, we've been shouting for over the last few weeks to become more of an offensive threat. We've seen a bit of that against Milan with his link-up play with Laxalt. But I think looking at Ncham, McGregor's going to have to play a much deeper role today because of the fact that Ncham isn't your Scott Brown type player who's going to link defence and midfield. If you want to look at the more offensive midfield players in Rogic, El Yunusi and Christie. So then McGregor might be nullified. His offensive threat might be nullified by that. Again, listen, once that whistle blows, it could be free-flowing, fast-flowing, attractive football. Brilliant, and we score goals for fun. We done it up at Pittodrie last season, if you remember. I think it was 4-0 after 40 minutes. It looked as though we were going to win 7 or 8-0 that day. And McInnes ran up the what do you call it, the tunnel. But I'm actually looking at the team now and I'm thinking it's all a bit sporadic.
It does maybe look that way, but look,
it's a bit random.
We're worried about what Cham turns up. We know he's got a history of being inconsistent. We're sitting here wondering how's Callum McGregor going to lead? What's his leadership style going to be? I think it'll be the same as what he always plays. He'll be calm, he'll be collective, and he'll try and make things happen. It's interesting to see that Aberdeen have went for a tight midfield free in Ferguson, McCrory and McGeoch. Mm-hmm. So they've put an extra body in the middle of the park. So it'll be interesting to see if we can play our way through them. Frimpong as well. I'm looking to see what Frimpong can do, see if he knows his job and to do it well, because we've got to have a look at the defensive side of Frimpong. Johnny Hayes has made it, so Hayes might be a threat down our right, Aberdeen's left. Bain, well, what we've kind of concluded that Barkas must have got injured when Shane Duffy clattered him for Milan's third goal.
So he's even injuring their own players now.
So Bain has to come in. He's got to be solid. He's got to give confidence to the guys in front of him. Is that a loss? Is it a loss having a look at losing Barkas? Have we really seen enough of Barkas to say that Bain's a massive downgrade? I don't think we have. I don't think we can actually make any sort of decision on Barkas. But Bain's there. We know what Bain can do. He's a decent shot stopper. He's got his faults, but I'm quite comfortable with Bain being there. We need a game for Duffy.
A big, towering display from Shane Duffy today.
We need a game for Duffy, and Brown's no there. I would expect Duffy to show this sort of Brown-like leadership today. If he's going
I think
to
you've got two leaders there, Kev.
If he's got
Ayer
to do
and
that.
Duffy. You've got two leaders there.
You want Ayer as well to continue his good form. Ayer's been our most consistent defender this season, so you want him to continue his good form. Christie, what does Christie always bring? Energy and vengefulness. He'll have shots. He'll try and make things happen. That's what we need. Tam starting. I say to you off air, is this just because he usually plays well against Aberdeen? I did say in the pre-match, the preview that we did, that I'm still worried about his fitness. He has to prove that his Celtic career just isn't going to be 20-minute cameos, impressive 20-minute cameos. If he's only going to get 60 minutes a day, then he's got to be on it for this 60 minutes. If he has a game where he flits in and out, doesn't do nothing, we're still going to have the doubts again, ain't we?
Well, you did mention that off camera there in the half-hour period between the two broadcasts, Kevin, where you said, it might well be we're looking at previous performances against Aberdeen and Rogic has played well. I think it's probably more to be based on the two cameo performances against St Johnstone and AC Milan, and he's been rewarded. Although I'm pretty surprised he is starting, to be fair, and he's been rewarded for those two cameo appearances. Can you afford to have a player at the club who sits on the bench and can turn the game around but might not be a 90-minute footballer? Why not? However, today isn't one of those days. Today's all about getting a result, and with that, he's packed the midfield. And that's what I'm saying there. Is that the answer to all the problems? Just pack the midfield with 5 players and kind of hope that it sorts itself out. I'm still struggling to see what Elyounoussi's role is going to be. Rogic and Christie normally playing that same spot, so is Christie going to be playing more off Ayeti's shoulder? It's a strange one. Again, though, we could go out there and win 5-0 and everybody can come back to me and say you shouldn't have criticised it. But there's a lot of changes, and often what happens is when you change a team, 4 or 5 players coming in and going, I sometimes think it's difficult to get a flow about your play, Kev, because you're just throwing a group of guys together for the first time. Really, when you're looking at that team, that's never lined up before. Scott Bain, interestingly, we did speak about Barkas beforehand. I think you're right about the injury from Duffy, but it's good to get Bain games as well. You never want to be in a situation where you're going into the biggest game of the season and your goalie doesn't make it, and an untested, I say untested in terms of this season, some guy who doesn't have many games, because if you're not playing for the first team at the moment, you're not playing. So Bain's sitting on that bench, so it's good to get him. I trust Bain in a game like today. I've got no problem with that. And the fact that Barkas hasn't been dropped is a good thing as well. He's obviously injured. But other than that, you've not mentioned Laxalt. I think he's going to be a big player for us today.
I just want Laxalt to be himself. Just keep on doing what he's done in the 2 games that we've seen him. Offer width, offer energy, offer pace, and create chances.
Yeah.
Tell Ayeti to stick in the box, because this guy's going to play these balls in quick to you. And Ayeti do what he's good at. He needs the service to score the goals, but you saw his link-up play the other night. His link-up player was good as well, but I want him in the box, because he doesn't seem to miss too many times. When he takes a shot, 9 out of 10 times, for what we've seen, it ends up in the back of the net. So I would be telling Ayeti, you just hang on the last man, and we're going to put balls behind him for you, and let him go. Let him run. Let's see if he is that fox in the box that we actually need, because we haven't really seen him. There's another football cliche, fox in the box. Has anybody ever tried to put a fox in a box? Where did that come from?
Remember the fox at Celtic Park back in the 90s? Oh, we shouldn't be talking about the
No,
90s.
no, I didn't.
And McGregor, you know the McGregor role that we saw him play where he was linking up with Laxalt against AC Milan, Kevin? That's not going to happen today. McGregor's going to play a completely different role due to the absence of Brown. So I can see perhaps El Yunusi playing that role in the midfield to try and link up with Laxalt over on the left, doubling up as we saw the other night. Can you afford to have Vincham doubling up with Frimpong again? Because obviously Brown's not there, so the whole dynamic of that midfield's changed. And Tommy Roderick certainly isn't going to be sitting in because he's going to be further up the field. This is where it gets a little bit confusing for me. It's almost as if let's just throw all our creative players at this, pack the midfield and hope that we win the game convincingly.
It does seem like that. Now you've pointed out, it does seem like that, but it's exciting, eh? I don't know how else to actually look at it. They sit here and go, this is bloody exciting.
That's the type of lineup I would be expecting at Celtic Park in just about every single league game. And we invariably don't line up anything like that. And we line up with one up front, and that's been happening. And it's been the state of play for the last season and a half. We're up at Pittodrie. This is, as I say, it's win or bust for Neil Lennon, and that lineup, for me, outlines that as being the situation. I'm not saying it's a panic lineup, but it's certainly like throwing every single creative player you can get your hands on into the midfield, and let's try and outscore the opposition and get a win, because a win is what Neil Lennon absolutely needs.
Maybe he's putting all his eggs in that basket. I just need to win this game to get on. But then what's the other two members of the coaching staff saying? What's Gavin Stratton and John Kennedy saying? We're sitting here saying Neil Lennon's picked this side.
Every week's giving us a different side, a different shape.
So what's John Kennedy and Gavin Stratton input into this?
Well, again, this has been a discussion, Kevin, isn't it? What is the dynamic between the coaching staff at the moment? Because it certainly wasn't a team that was put together or assembled by Neil Lennon. Now, some of that was circumstance, where you think about Kennedy already being in place when Lennon comes in, so that's fine. But then obviously the Gavin Strachan appointment, we don't have the information to suggest whether or not Neil Lennon played a part in that. But it does seem a wee bit fragmented. What part does the wider coaching staff play in that? I would guess, in the past we thought Kennedy had a big part to play, and certainly in the interim period when Lennon wasn't permanently the Celtic manager, Lennon admitted as much himself that Kennedy was making a lot of those decisions at that time, Kevin.
And he still admitted it at the end of last season. He admitted that Damien Duff and John Kennedy were more to do with the tactics and the training, and Neil Lennon came in on match days, really, and done his work on match days, which makes him seem like a bit of a motivational speaker, if you get what I mean there. That's very, very, that's just me being very, very flippant.
You'd expect Lenny to pick the team, because we've mentioned before, Kevin, about Martin O'Neill. You've done a lot of research on O'Neill over the piece. Maybe
he's just talking down his role, which Martin was very good at as well.
Yeah, but he always picked the team. He might not have been on the training ground from Monday to Friday, and a lot of the players say that was the case. Because he had his team that looked after that in Robertson and Walford. But, he always picked the team. He always lined the team up. He always shaped the team. You would think Lennon being the manager, that's also his role. But I'm looking at this, the more I look at it, the more concerned I'm getting, because Laxalt hasn't shown me that he's a defender yet, and neither is Frimpong. And there are two fullbacks.
We've got 8 attacking players there.
Yeah, we do.
We've got 8 attacking players and 2 defenders. And Ayer likes to have a wee break out of the halfway line as well. So
no, I know, and that's something that I think, since Duffy arrived, it has kind of been drawn out of his game a wee bit. We've still seen it, Kevin. We've seen his offensive play against St Johnstone as recently as that game up at McDermott.
Is this pure Lenny ball? Is this pure Lenny ball? Are we going to see?
I'm not even sure what that is now, to be honest with you, Kevin. But let's say it's a bold move, and let's have a look at some of the comments coming in, because the first one that comes in from It's Decorating, welcome back to the show. You're commenting on YouTube. Bold changes, but a must win nevertheless. We are sitting here in October, and this is a must win league game. That in itself tells a story, Kevin.
Definitely, it does. It does tell a story, but there's 2 ways to look at it. Are we overreacting? Or because the fact that it is only October, or is what's ever wrong at our football club over the last few months, is it really that serious? Are we overreacting?
Well, that's one thing that could be levied at any form of reaction that is critical of decisions or performances. And then at the end of the season, you can say, well, actually, we weren't overreacting, we were spot on. There's an instinct in terms of business and sport and top level football, Kevin. And I think that the instinct here within the club is that this isn't an overreaction. There is something deeply concerning about how this season's going.
If that's the case then, Paul, and say we get an outstanding victory today, we're just kicking the can down the road for it to come back, for it to get blown back at us at another case.
No, because if we go out there and get an outstanding victory today, my concern on Thursday will be we're going to start with another 11 in a different shape and a completely different game plan. It's, there's enough permutations within that squad to get it right. And when you get it right, you get it right. What I want is to have a plan so that I know that there's a stability where we're going to go for our running games, be that domestically or Europe, where you're going into the game and you know virtually what the team is. At the moment, who would have predicted that?
Well,
who would have predicted that?
I predicted 9 out of 11.
So, you know what I mean, though? It's almost as if, we could well go out there, but is it really just, is there an element of luck in that? Is this thought out that we're playing Pittodrie, this is how they shape up, this is how they're playing, this is how we're going to match that, and this is how we're going to impose ourselves on them? Or, as I say, is it just let's get as many creative players as we can, pack the midfield, and hope we outscore the opposition?
This goes back to the conversations that have been on ACSOM all summer, and I reckon there was a short-term view of this season, and there wasn't any long-term plan. And what you're saying there completely confirms what was it, my fear, or what I was thinking. We looked, 10 was a major goal for us. 10 is a major goal for us. And when we appointed Neil Lennon on May the 25th, 2019, that wasn't long-term thinking. No. That was to get us to 10. And now we're sitting here and you're saying this seems like a team that's just going to get as many as our good players on the park as possible and hope for the best. This is where it's got us. This is where it's got us. That decision that was made on the 25th of May 2019.
But then last season I didn't see that kind of panic.
We did have this last season when we got put out with Cluj.
The panic though, Kevin, not knowing who's going to even line up for you from one game to the next.
Well, you look at the panic last season when you had Bolingoli and Julian didn't play against Cluj.
Another bizarre decision.
You had Callum McGregor at left back then as Bailey. This is just another predictable period. If anybody had watched Neil Lennon's management over his career.
But in the big games, imagine you're going to New Douglas Park and he leaves the new signings, Bolingoli and Julian on the bench, £10 million worth of talent, and you play McGregor at left back and it doesn't work. And then that was the biggest game of the season. That's a Champions League qualifier. That's my issue here. It's not as though you can try these things out in a game that, even if you drop points in over the season, you can win them back. These are the biggest games, and we're making the errors in the biggest games. We've made them already against Ferencvaros and Rangers this season. And that, I'm not harking back to the Cluj game, but do you not learn your lessons from that?
I'm going to go even further back. Lennon's first full season in charge, getting beat off Inverness 4-2. I don't think he's learned the lesson for that night, where we ended up playing a 4-2-4. And he threw as many attackers against an Inverness side which was there for the taking, and basically getting beat that night cost us a title. Yeah, it did cost us a title. I don't think Neil's learned from that night, but he's not alone in that with football managers. The other fans of other clubs will give you a list of scenarios where managers haven't learned their lesson. It seems to be, but if managers don't learn their lesson, what happens? They end up out of a job. But they'll make the same mistakes time and time again. You'll see it. Pep Guardiola's making the same mistakes time and time again.
Now, Kevin, again, we go out and win 5-0, and I'll take it all back, and it's the right team selection. And this is the nature of live broadcast on a Celtic State of Mind, Kevin. You've got to have your opinions asked you, the team lines, and right off the bat. So, as it came in live. Now, Stephen Forbes, do we think McGregor and Cham up against McCrory and Ferguson could be a key factor? Absolutely. Win that battle and allow Rogic and Christie creative licence to thread balls through to the clinical Yeti. if that's the case, and I think that's a good analysis of the team lineup, what's Elyounoussi's job?
I think it's to. I think he'll push up with Ayeti and give the Aberdeen back three some problems. I think Derek McInnes has showed his hand by the fact that it's not just Ferguson and McCrory. Dylan McGeoch's in that centre three as well. So obviously he's trying to make that area far congested so Celtic can't play through them.
Now, on a Friday, Kevin, we are chuffed to bits that Jim Orr comes in and joins us on a Friday. Jim, as many will know, is a playwright and a long-time Celtic supporter. His view was we can't go into Pittodrie without Scott Brown. Now he's commenting saying 10 is on a knife edge. Encham for Brown, huge call.
I listened to Jim on Friday and he was very, very adamant with that. And as I said, my team had Brown in it. Your team had Brown in it. But what I will say, I've tried to predict the subs as well. And I've got Brown coming on for Cham. I've got Taylor coming on for Laxalt because 3 games in a week for Laxalt after not playing, and he's been took off in every game that he's played so far anyway. I've got Turnbull coming on for Rogic, and I've got Griffiths and Kamala coming on for Moy and Ayeti. So if we're going to make 5 subs, that's the 5 predicted subs. I think Brown will get game time in this game at some point.
Would that be in the same kind of manner as the St Johnstone game time where we actually needed him to come in and shore things up and lead us over the line, almost drag us over the line?
Could be that. It could also just be to see the game
just
out.
to see the game out. No, great point by Jim and by everybody. Tam Mannion, who comes on regularly as well, other than Bain and Rogic. The others are regular starters for Celtic. Is the team really a huge surprise? I think the surprise is the shape. Because I'm asking you, if you're looking at what Stephen Forbes said there, and you've got Rogic and Christie feeding Ayeti, I've already suggested, is Elyounoussi going to be doubling up with Laxalt? If so, then it's going to be unbalanced because you don't have the same on the other side with Frimpong. I think it's more that. It's the combination of players that's playing rather than the fact that can Elyounoussi do a job? Yeah, we've seen it on Thursday night. He can do a job. It's a combination of players in each of their roles. Would it surprise you if Christie's up front with Ayeti? Because that then gives you more of a balance, doesn't it? Because you then know that Rogic's going to be playing that role that we normally see Christie playing. Mm-hmm. Would that surprise you?
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me to see Ayeti on the left-hand side or in the middle of the park, the way this season's went. But I'm having a look at it as a 4-2-3-1. Mm-hmm. I think these went back with a tried and tested formation that the majority of these players, well, there's no really the midfield of these players are happy with. I think his main men in there are Cham, McGregor and Christie and Rodic. They're used to playing in the 4-2-3-1 formation, and I think it is a 4-2-3-1.
We will soon see once we line up, which is just a matter of minutes away. We've got 5 minutes before kick-off, Kevin. So I'm going to ask you, now that you've had a look at the teom, you've digested it, you've maybe figured out how we're going to shape up. What's your prediction for today? Not an H.
Not an H. No, my prediction is 4-1 Celtic with Moy scoring the first goal.
Moy scoring the first goal. 4-1 Celtic. On the basis of the team line, you think there's goals in that. Sometimes you can be disappointed in it. It doesn't work out that way. I think there are goals, but I also think that when you're looking at the defence, Kevin, you've got Laxalt and Frimpong, who are both proven themselves, and I think Laxalt in just a few games, they've proven themselves to be offensive threats. I'm not sure about defensively how that's going to work, and if that's the case, I think that we are going to be losing a couple of goals today. Can that side outscore an Aberdeen team that scores 2 or 3? Potentially.
This could be chaos.
It could well be, but I'm going to go for a Celtic win. And we do have an ACSOM predictor, which, at the moment I've said 4-3 Celtic, with Frimpong getting on the score sheet. Anything can happen today, and it will be interesting. We will be coming back at half time, Kevin, to try and make sense of what's happened in the first 45. So everybody that's joined us today, please get involved and come back at half time. It will be 1:45, and we'll see where we are at half time, Kevin, and whether or not this has worked for Lenny. It is a bold move for Neil Lennon. But all that's left for me to say just now is enjoy the first half, and thank you, Kevin Graham, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks, lads.